Yeah, no, it's all.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening. It is Monday, July 14th, 2025. This is the Guilford Board of Education. Welcome to our regular meeting. Please, we invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have 3 sets of meeting minutes to review and approve. The first, June 9th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the Monday, June 9th, 2025 Board of Education meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Any comments or corrections on these minutes? I only had it, not worth mentioning, a very minor one halfway through page 4, right before 9.3. Right before 9.3, on a motion made by Mr. Delventura and seconded by Mrs. Rader. All right, so there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, and I know we didn't have the full board, so we'll have some abstentions, but all those in favor of approving the Monday, June 9th, 2025 Board of Education meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, so Ms. Penalosa and Ms. Baldwin abstain. Next, the Monday, June 23rd, 2025 Guilford Board of Education workshop meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any corrections or comments? I actually noticed at the very top, I think Penalosa is spelled incorrectly.
I'm sorry.
I just need an extra L in there.
And not to be like crazy, but it's Jen with one N.
No, that's fine.
We'll get both those fixed. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the Monday, June 23rd, 2025 Board of Education workshop meeting minutes as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I am an abstention. I was not at the meeting.
Extension.
And Mr. Scretta. All right. Finally, meeting minutes for Tuesday, July 1st, 2025, special meeting, Guilford Board of Education. This was an executive session. Motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any corrections? All right, this was a smaller group. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed and abstentions.
Aye.
So Mr. Brooks, Mr. Scretta, Mr. Delventura, and Ms. Peck are abstentions. Thank you. I can repeat that if that's helpful. Also, okay. All right, we are up to item 4, public comments on topics on the agenda. We actually don't have anyone in the public here. So we are going to move right on to number 5, which is review and approval of expenditures for the month of June 2025. Ms. Baldwin.
Thank you very much. The expenditures for the month of June 2025 were $10,297,270.43. This represents 98.8% of the budget as compared to last year, which was 99.79. There was a tremendous amount of revenue for the month in the amount of $215,856.38. This includes things from excess cost, Medicaid, pre-K tuition, non-resident tuition, and the the magnet transportation grant and tuition from Clinton. So we had a lot of sources of revenue for the month. Salaries were in line with the prior year. Employee benefits were higher than the prior year. Purchase services are lower than the prior year. In tuition, it is lower. That is partly due to the excess cost grant received from the state in the amount of $140,191.78. Supplies and materials are lower than the prior year. Capital is lower, and we are still expecting a payment on the capital lease of $113,442.49. Transportation is lower than that last year. That again is due to excess cost grant money received in the amount of $39,242.22. The warrants that were submitted are totaling $2,479,860.55.
Excellent, thank you. We did in the operations committee meeting that happened just prior to this meeting, talk extensively about both the financial report and the warrants, but I will pause to see if my colleagues have anything to add. No, all right. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the June 2025 financial reports for fiscal year 24-25.
Moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you. We are up to communications. Does anyone have communications that they received they wanted to share?
We got a lot of emails about Cox first grade.
Right.
And I know that both you and Dr. Friedman have responded to those emails. You know, this is something that we did discuss a lot in our budgets, which started in October. So it was something that was talked about every month up until the point it was pushed out to the referendum, and then it passed the referendum.
And I'll be touching on it again during my report.
Perfect. So it's just a reminder for the folks out there that are watching. If you have something you want addressed in the school budget, the time to get started is October. So now's the time to start talking about next year, believe it or not.
Yeah. And we do have, for those unaware, we, every fall, in October, have a, Board of Education meeting in which the community, parents, et cetera, can come and identify items or processes or things that they would like included in the budget. This is before a budget has been fully drafted. And then again, once a full budget is brought to the Board of Education by Dr. Freeman and the administration, in the beginning of January, we hold 2 public forums at the end of January in which parents, community members, et cetera, can come and address specific line items or others items. And then, of course, lastly, we are always available by email. Any other communications? I think that summed it up, but that was mine. Yeah, okay. Number 7, our student representatives, I hope are enjoying the summer and are not with us at the moment. So I am turning it over to Superintendent Report, Dr. Freeman.
Thank you very much. And I do have a number of items to touch base on this evening. The first is just to inform the board that Ms. Chaff and I have approved an exchange student to join us at Guilford High School next year. We will be welcoming an incoming 11th grader from Germany who will be living with a host family here in Guilford and joining us at Guilford High School. We have received all the appropriate paperwork. We are excited to extend the approval, and it's my responsibility to inform you of such, and we're excited to afford the opportunity and to have that opportunity to host the student here with us this year.
That's great.
Yep, so happy to share that. Also wanted to give an enrollment update, and so just wanted to touch a little bit on the conversation that we just had around communications. Specifically over the summer, we want to spend some time updating you on elementary enrollments and what class sections look like. I want to inform the board that already we have had to extend an additional classroom position beyond what was budgeted in the budget that we approved back in April. So I'd like to draw your attention to the kindergarten sections at Lakes. This year, after some extensive conversation during the first round of budgeting, and then after the Board of Finance made some reductions to our budget, we had budgeted for 11 kindergarten sections, not for 12 this year. And Lakes is outstripping those numbers. We had hit 60 students at Lakes before the end of the school year. And so in early summer, I approved an additional section with 60 students in 4 sections. We will be looking at kindergartens at 15 at Lakes. As soon as I approved that addition, the enrollments stopped at Lakes. So we haven't moved up to 16 or 17. That's just Murphy's Law, and that's the way it works every time. But we still have all of August ahead of us, and we often get enrollments even in early September. But Lakes is set to accept any other incoming students. I also want to draw your attention to 3 other sections that we are keeping close watch on. One we just spoke about. At Cox, last year, we offered 3 kindergarten sections of 13s at Cox last year. We made very clear as we went through the budget process that as those kindergarten sections moved to first grade, that we would be looking at 2 first grade sections of 21 and 22. That is within the board recommended class sizes of 16 to 22 for first grades. But I want to point out how close it is. So we are watching that enrollment very carefully. We actually have some anticipation that the size may decrease in grade 1 at Cox between now and the end of the summer. So again, we're watching it very carefully. But should a family with first grade triplets move into the Cox region, then we will be looking at the necessity of extending a possible class section there. I want to draw your attention to the kindergartens at Leet for exactly the same reason. The recommended kindergarten sizes in the board policy are 15 to 20. Leet is right on the edge. Now, the difficulty there, the difference between 40 and 60 is that 60 in 3 sections is 15. But, 60 in 4 sections is 15. To take that 40 and move it to 3 sections will give us sections of 13, 13, and 14 next year. And again, Murphy's Law, we're not right. We've gotten to that number and we've sort of stalled there at least. So we're watching it really carefully. And additionally, I want to draw your attention to the 4th grade section at LEAT as well. This was not a budgetary item. This was a decision that Mr. Seal and I made, where there had previously been only 2 sections at grade 2 and 3 sections at grade 4. We saw a reduction in the class at 4th grade. That 4th grade as the 3rd grade section was 48 last year. We saw a decrease 48 to 45, while that 2nd grade class was in fact inching up a little bit. So Mr. Seal reassigned teachers within the building. There was no budgetary impact. You now see 2nd grade classes that are appropriate. I'll also remind you that LEAT will be housing the ABA program district-wide this year, and some of those students mainstream into those 2nd grade classrooms. That was a really thoughtful move. We are continuing to watch that grade 4, however. The upper limit for grades 3 and 4 in board policy, the range is 18 to 24. So we've got room for at least 3 more students to move in there, but we're keeping an eye on those 3 sections and wanted to let you know. I've spoken to a number of parents, both by phone and by email, and let them know as well. We will continue to watch these sections through August. And if we see a necessity, we will add additional unbudgeted sections. Again, we're currently 1 FTE above budget already with the change that we made at Lakes. If we need to add other sections, we will. I'm really hopeful that we won't be adding 3 unbudgeted teaching sections at the elementary. We're watching and we are monitoring that as the summer unfolds. And wanted to leave room there for questions.
Go ahead. If in like the grade 1 at Cox, where we're looking at higher numbers than at Jones Lakes and Leet, do they get additional support staff? Like, is it do they get extra help? Like, is there a person that kind of wanders through there more often than other places?
No, so they will receive coaching support, they will receive interventionist support. Coaching support is broadly for all of the teaching staff. Interventionist support is specifically targeted by student need. Paraprofessional support is there to support essentially primarily students with special needs as they move in and out of the classrooms fluidly. But we have classroom ranges.
Yeah.
And we fully believe that our teachers are capable of supporting those ranges. I signed a third grade teacher last week who's coming to join us and looking at third grade classes in our district of 20s and 19s. She taught a class of 30 last year. Even these high numbers are low by state standards, and they're exceptionally low by national standards. So the quick answer is no. A first grade class of 22 students, I have every confidence that our first grade teachers are trained, prepared, and supported appropriately to support those numbers.
Thank you.
I mean, I sympathize very much with the first grade parents' concerns, right? Because it's hard when the kids are so little to go from such small classes to what they deem to be big. But just to point out, I know Moira and I both had children who just graduated this year who, when they were in first grade, it was four sections of over 20 kids in each section.
Yeah.
And you know, to the credit of the school district, there's a lot of people that do go in and out of those classrooms, you know, whether it's the social workers in there to talk to other, you know, whether they're there for one child or multiple children. The elementary schools really do a good job of sending people in and out of the classrooms, and that if there's any concerns, I'm confident that the teachers know how to reach out and that other people also have eyes on those children to take care of anything that they may see.
Yeah.
It stinks to have the class that big, I get it, but
It's
It
difficult,
happens,
it's
and it's still
difficult
low.
when you had 13 last year and you're going to have 21 this year.
They had
Yes, they had the smallest
lowest,
section.
and really low. I mean, just not traditionally. We don't typically see classes that low.
and I think we questioned that as a board, wondering why you didn't mix them into two, but
Well, and right, it's that 20 and so to make 3 sections in kindergarten
Yeah.
would have given us kindergartens of 20 and 21,
Yeah, you
which
can't.
would have been one too high. So forced to violate that board policy, I preferred to violate it going smaller than going above. But then moving into first grade, and quite honestly, the difficulty becomes when we create those sections in kindergarten, you have a section of 13, and then if in first grade that goes up to 21, I mean, a parent pointed out to me, that's a 50% increase. It is, I recognize that.
It feels.
But if we don't change it in 1 and 2, then it gets to 3 and 4, where now the cap is 24. Do we maintain classes of 13 all the way through, or and so it's the balancing act that we do. And again, I have every confidence in our teachers, in the supports that we have in place, in our principals, to make sure that those teachers are prepared and those classrooms are supported as they should be. And again, I can only say that even the big numbers in Guilford aren't big by state standards and are not big by national standards.
Well, thank you for sharing this with us.
Happy to share that. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the funding issue, the grant funding issue that has been playing out. So on June 30th, school districts across the country were informed that title grant monies that we were scheduled to receive on July 1st were being withheld. So first, I want to highlight those dates. We received the title grants annually on July 1st. Those are dollars that were built into our budgeting assumptions this year. We were informed that on June 30th, those grants were being withheld. It was a total dollar amount of $6.8 billion nationally that was withheld on June 30th, and we were informed of that withholding on June 30th. We were told that those dollars were going to be reviewed to see if they are in alignment with the administration's priorities. We don't know if those funds are being canceled. We don't know if they're being delayed by weeks. We don't know if they're being delayed by months. but that was $6.8 billion annually that we learned about the day before we were to receive it. Connecticut's share of that 6.8 billion is $53.6 million. Education dollars that school districts in Connecticut had budgeted and planned for that are being withheld. Today, we learned that Connecticut and 24 other states and the District of Columbia are suing the Trump administration to receive those dollars. Those dollars were approved by Congress. They're being held by the executive branch for review. I want to point out, before I move on to the next level and talk about the Guilford portion of the Connecticut portion, I want to point out that those dollars being withheld are disproportionately impacting students who do not live in Guilford or towns like Guilford. The students who are being impacted by that withholding are students who can least afford to have their education disrupted or impacted. Those dollars would have been, some of those dollars would have been spent on summer programming, summer schooling, and even summer feeding programs. New Haven, Hartford, and Waterbury are all losing $3 million that is being delayed or withheld that they don't have to spend on their students. Bridgeport is losing $3.8 million that is being withheld. It is estimated that it is 14% of the overall school budget in Connecticut that is being withheld this way. Guilford is not being impacted in the same way. The portion of dollars that we are losing in Guilford is going to be between $48,000 and $65,000 that we planned on that will be withheld from us. The Connecticut Finance Association Finance Project projects that we're losing $48,000. Mrs. Trudeau, who's a little more conservative, suggests it could be as high as $65,000. That is either going to be delayed or withheld from us. Now, to put that in context, that's a teacher's salary. We just talked about an unfunded kindergarten teacher that we had to add. These dollars would have provided for that, but we don't know if we're going to receive those dollars. Now, we can make up a $65,000 shortfall. We will find a way to ensure that we provide for our teachers and for our students as we need to provide. But it's important to note that this happened. Then today, I learned about the lawsuit. So Connecticut and Attorney General Tong plans on fighting for those dollars to secure those for Connecticut school districts. We will simply continue to monitor and wait and see. I have been told, or I have been asked, and it has been suggested that the $65,000 that we are losing in Guilford is because of political activities or instructional decisions that this board and this administration have engaged in. I can tell you absolutely that that is unfounded. The dollars, the $65,000 is not being withheld from Guilford specifically or for any reason. This is a blanket hold. It's been applied to every school district in the country. So when somebody suggests that those dollars are being withheld from us because of decisions we've made or books that we've purchased or training that we have provided, or the words that we choose to use when we talk about our school system, those dollars are not being held from us because we choose to use words like diversity or inclusion or belonging or justice or equity. That is simply not the fact. The fact is they're being held globally from every school district until they are released. And we don't know if or when that will happen. The other news that we learned today is that the Supreme Court has green-lighted the firing of employees at the Department of Education federally. So I don't know if those dollars that are now being held, I don't know who's conducting the review that is being suggested. And if employees start being fired from the Department of Education, I don't know when they intend to review to ensure that Bridgeport receives the $3.8 million that they are due, or when or if Guilford will receive the $65,000 that we are due. So It will not impact programming this year. It will not impact teacher training this year. It will not impact the way that we support our children or talk about the ways in which we support our children. And we will continue to monitor and keep you apprised.
But it is the case nationally that monies are being withheld for review for exactly the reasons that to see if in fact school districts have been misusing money politically wrong.
That's the suggestion, but again,
I mean, they announced that, and that's what they
yes,
announced it.
that's the explanation. On the other hand, when we received the Dear Colleague letter earlier that reminded us that discrimination is illegal and egregious and that we should not engage in discrimination, the examples of prohibited behaviors that were listed were that we should not use race as a determining factor in our admissions policies. We don't have an admission policy, or that we should not use race in our decisions related to financial aid. We don't give financial aid, or in our hiring practices, and we don't. We simply do not. And so all of the prohibited, the Dear Colleague letter, and then the letter that demanded that all school districts attest that we are following the laws, they both said that we must not treat students different on the basis of their race. That's what we've been talking about since 2018 when we use words like diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, belonging, or even anti-racism. We have been talking about not treating children differently based on the nature, right, on the basis of their race or their gender or how they identify. And that's what we're being told not to do. So I'm confident that we are not doing the things that we have been threatened not to do, and that our dollars should be released to us. I don't know if they will. I don't know if I will agree with the determinations on whether we are faithfully not doing the things that we are not to do. But when the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Education for Connecticut received that demand of attestation, they told individual school districts not to respond. They responded for the state as a whole and said, we are aware of our responsibilities. We are meeting our responsibilities. We are following all applicable state and federal law. And I firmly agree with that position.
All I'm saying is the federal government is making a decision that is globalized on a presumption, but the ramifications are local.
Yes.
So we could be as innocent as the snow, and we're going to get hurt because the screen that's being used or the ideology that's being used for the federal determination is in fact impacting people. So there's a gross injustice, particularly for places like Bridgeport. I mean, it's just
Massive.
an abomination.
I'm not sure who's going to conduct the review of $6.8 billion when they're about to begin mass layoffs and firings. And so I'm really confused. I was prepared to share this report tonight, and I'm only more confused by the two pieces of news that I heard before coming to this meeting tonight. So we will continue to monitor, and I'll say what I've said before. I am fortunate to work, and our students are fortunate to attend schools in Guilford, which sits in Connecticut.
Tell us what other federal funding is Guilford getting besides that 65,000 you referenced?
So in those grant funds, we receive a total of approximately $1 million. The bulk of that is directed towards special education expenses. The small portion that has been identified for us in this withholding primarily would go towards teacher training. And there's the large bulk goes towards special education supports. There's a teacher training, Title I, which is direct student support.
And as of right now, there's no discussions of withholding any of those funds.
Yeah.
Just the 6.8 million. And again, right, all of it, the numbers dwindle that quickly
Mhm.
because we receive relatively such a small share of the federal dollars that 6.8 billion nationally becomes 53.6 million in the state, and then 48 to 65,000 for us. So again, the loss or the harm will be disproportionately targeted at poorer, more rural, or specifically more urban
Urban,
communities in Connecticut. And that model will play out nationally as well. More affluent suburban communities receive less federal aid because they need less and therefore will be hurt less by this loss.
Also wanna
We're
make-
insulated against
I
it.
also want to make it very clear, there is zero that this administration can do, nor this board can do to change the outcome of what's going on right now.
We are waiting to be informed if the dollars are gone or if they will simply be late or if they will be partially released or if we will be criticized or chastised in some way for them being. I honestly don't know. Again, and it's only exacerbated by the decision about layoffs and firings today. Who is going to conduct an evaluation of 6.8 million and who will
In a
be
timely-
responsible to focus on the 48,000 for Guilford and how we spend or spent that in the past to tell us what, I mean, there simply isn't capacity to do it in the existing office, forget in one that's about to experience massive layoffs and firings. I don't understand I received a notification from the commissioner today that more information is to come. They are working as fast as they can to keep up with these decisions. No, there's nothing that we can
the
do.
lawsuit, accelerate.
There's nothing that we can do other than to speak up about the impact that this has. That it is no way to run an organization to be told the day before you open for the season that your budget is being impacted. I mean, when locally at the state level, when we had a mid-year rescission because of a state financial crisis, we howled that we're already in the school year. How can you keep dollars that we built the school year around? We build 1-year budgets. We only budget 1 year at a time. To be told the day before the fiscal year starts that you're having money taken out of that, even if it only represents one salary. It's no way to run an organization. It is not a responsible way to communicate about education dollars.
Dr. Freeman, thank you for calling it what it is. And, it's dangerous, it's harmful, it's ignorant, and it's cruel. And we'll be able to handle this, but these big districts in our state won't. And there are programs right now that kids cannot participate in because of that. And most neighbors are other children. So to your point, we have to keep talking about this and calling it what it is. The dismantling of the Department of Education was a long-term plan, and sadly, the Supreme Court has sided with the Trump administration on this. And to the question, who will review there will not be anybody there to review it. And even though the Congress, a lot of these funds, they're superseding that legal established understanding in many cases. This is just one example. And so, I hope that things will go well, but I think districts have to be really prepared for finding other ways to accommodate these, but we're not running these programs, which is really horrifying.
One of my responsibilities is to interpret and advise this board and this community about state and federal decisions that are made and how they will impact our community. I spoke to this board really frankly when No Child Left Behind was an issue, when Common Core state standards were rolled out. I have always told you what was positive and what was challenging about the decisions that were made and how they were impacting our school system. I just can't speak about this decision in any way other than the way I'm speaking to it tonight. And
Well-
again, we're fortunate that the impact is actually so minimal here.
Go ahead. Is there any sense that there will be a prioritization of releasing of the funds based on the percentage taken from a particular district? Like, do we have any idea if Bridgeport will hear, yes, you're getting a portion of those funds ahead of Guilford, so that districts that are most impacted will receive word sooner than others?
I would hope But that is only hope. I have no knowledge or information. And again, this wasn't the decision that was discussed with school. I was not part of any conversation about this happening. I learned about it by reading it in the press. I mean, oftentimes when decisions that affect school districts are made, either through national organizations that I'm part of, or there'll be questions, there will be opinions, there will be comment periods, there will at least be advanced notification. When I made the analogy to the mid-year rescission that was made here in Connecticut, all of those things happened. We were warned, we were asked, there was discussion about how this would impact. I disagreed with it, but at least I had a sense that it was being discussed and it was coming. I learned about this as a Connecticut superintendent by reading the news story. No advance notice to the State Department of Education or professional organizations that I'm aware of. I do have
Well,
one last item that's not on the agenda, but I'd like to touch on it if I may.
Okay, sorry.
So we informed this board in the community last week of some really good news for Dr. Mullen. That is not really good news for us in here in Guilford. So Dr. Mullen, the principal at Adams Middle School, informed us last week of an opportunity she has to move on and become an assistant superintendent in another Connecticut school district. While we're really happy for Dr. Mullen, that is going to be a challenge for us. I mentioned to this board in my communication to you, and I do want to repeat it. It marks a really unusual moment in time here in Guilford, not one that surprises me, but at this moment in Guilford, we have two sitting principals who are moving into assistant superintendent positions. And we're fortunate that one of those is wholly local. Mr. Hamill's moving from a principalship into our assistant superintendency, but our two middle school principals are leaving principalships to become assistant superintendents. This board has been notified of the resignation of two special education coordinators who are leaving Guilford. They're both leaving this year because they're becoming special education directors in neighboring school districts. I think it speaks really well to the strength of our team, to the skills that folks develop here in Guilford, and to the opportunities that are there for them in the future. But it's going to be challenging for us to fill those positions this year. Now, Mr. Buno has started at Baldwin. He began on July 1st. He's in every day. He's working. He's getting ready. But we now have a challenge to fill behind Dr. Mullen at Adams. I want this board and the community to be aware that the plan going forward is not to try to conduct a complete search from now to the opening of school. We are working to find an appropriate interim principal who will take on the reins at the school, and we will conduct a search while we have an interim in place. This board knows that we've had really good luck with interims in the past with Mr. Goler, with Mr. Regan, with Dr. Johnson, who came back. And we've had really good interims who give us the time that we need so that we can then slow down and make good decisions moving forward. There's some complications around the time. We're not sure right now whether that interim position will be a half year with a search to place a principal on January 1st, or whether we may engage a full year of an interim with a search that would then place a new principal at Adams on July 1st. We're going to work out those details. We're meeting with people. We're talking to people now. We will keep this board informed. We'll keep the community informed. We won't wait for a board meeting. When we know that we have an interim in place, we will get that information out to the Adams community as quickly as possible. Again, it's important to note, interims are selected quickly. We won't be doing a full search. We just simply don't have the time to do that. There will be a full search during the upcoming school year to find our next permanent and long-term principal for Adams Middle School.
Questions or thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Is it possible to leverage your previous search for this new position?
Yes, and we are.
Fantastic.
Yep. And so we're looking back to folks that we've had previous relationships with, and we're looking at folks who were in the search for the Baldwin. And again, there's some complications with Connecticut retirement procedures that complicate who the pool might include. So we're working through those, and yes, and thank you.
Other questions? Well, certainly be sad to see, to see Garen, no one go, but congratulations to her on a exciting new position.
Yeah, it's very exciting for her. And that concludes my rather energetic report.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the board agenda. We have a number of things to go through this evening. The first is a very long list, exciting of new appointments. So 9.1 is personnel. We are being asked to ratify the appointment of the following 12 teachers. Alicia Becker, Guilford High School, Italian World Language, and Special Education, so 0.6 FT, full-time equivalent, as a Italian World Language teacher, and 0.4 FTE as a special education teacher.
Can I just ask a question? Is this the additional
This is
Italian
the-
teacher that's been so requested?
This is a unicorn. Yes.
Wow.
This is
I knew this was gonna be a question, and I knew we weren't gonna be able to wait until we.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
This is an
It's
addition
fascinating.
to the 1.0 Italian FTE that we currently have at the high school, expanding that department to 1.6. And the opportunity to find somebody certified in Italian and cross-endorsed in special ed so that we have the opportunity to make a full-time position out of this.
It's
It-
really quite unbelievable, actually.
Karma's really good.
Okay. No, I'm glad you asked, because Jen, you were not the only one who was
13 years. of experience.
wondering about that, right? Okay, so first teacher, Alicia Becker. Second, Haley Clark, Leek Elementary Special Education Teacher, 1-year position to cover a leave of absence. Emily Cowles, Lakes Elementary School, grade 4 teacher. Samantha Kranz, Leet Elementary School, kindergarten teacher. Isaac Freeman, Lakes Elementary School, grade 2 teacher. Nicole Green, Lakes Elementary, grade 1 teacher. Melanie Healy, Lakes Elementary School, special education pre-K teacher. Bailey Meglin, Leet Elementary School, grade 2 teacher. Madeline Meyer, Cox Elementary School, grade 2 teacher. Alessandra Minikine, Jones Elementary School, special education teacher. Maureen Quayle, Cox Elementary School, grade 3 teacher. And Amanda Tier, Leet Elementary School, special education pre-K teacher. So again, we're being asked to ratify the appointment of these 12 teachers. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. All right, that's unanimous. We are being asked to ratify the resignation of the following 2 teachers. Philip Day from Adams Middle School, language arts, 14 years of experience. And Jamie Fernicola, Leet Elementary School, school psychologist, 10 years of experience. Is there a motion to ratify the resignation of these 2 teachers?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that's everyone, and appreciation for those years of service to those 2 teachers. We're being asked to ratify for the purpose of retirement, the following teacher, Laura Catania, Baldwin Middle School, grade 6 math teacher, 28 years of experience. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. And again, a thank you to Lori Catania for 28 years of experience and service to Guilford Public Schools. And then finally, please, we're being asked to ratify the resignation of the following administrator. Heather Gajewski, Special Education Coordinator, 20 years experience. Is there a motion to approve the resignation of this administrator?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous as well, and a thank you to Heather for sure. All right, lots of hiring going on. Lots of hiring. 9.2 is to act on the acceptance of registration for 3 kindergarten students under the age of 5 requesting enrollment in the 25-26 school year. We have done this a number of times. Again, this speaks to Public Act number 23208, which became effective July 1st, 2023, which set a date for student enrollment in school at age 5, but allowed districts to consider and assess children who might be slightly younger for admittance to kindergarten. We're being asked to approve 3 additional students who would be going to LEAT who fall into this category. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
There's a typo in.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna.
Yes,
correct that.
thank you.
It is 3.
It is 3. No, thank you very much. All right. So I think that was unanimous. Do I have everyone? Terrific. All right, 9.3 is to receive, this is a receive item, the educator growth plan. Dr. Freeman, do you want to speak to that at all before we?
Only to turn it over to Dr. Goss and to point that.
I'm sorry.
But again, as I do turn it over, to point out once again, this was a new plan that went in place for
Right.
teachers this year. This was, it was a plan that was pulled together by a team of educators across Guilford. Dr. Goss led the work of that team on this plan. The team has, the plan has been received incredibly well by principals and by teachers. These are revisions that we're putting in place because, again, of Dr. Goss's work monitoring the plan, meeting with focus groups, getting feedback after the first year of launch. And we have been asked, and Dr. Goss has been asked to share this plan with the state. And so she will be joining the state September 30th to share our plan with other school districts, as they would really like to see more districts move in the same direction that Guilford has moved with this plan. So Dr. Goss is going to share those revisions with you, and I just want to thank her and her team once again for the work that they put into this plan.
Members of the team here in the room, it was wonderful. I'm going to be very quick because I know we have looked at this plan a lot of times. So I did just want to share with you, we did a survey of the teachers, any certified staff members received the survey. 176 responded, which is actually about a 50% response rate, which is huge, especially given that we sent out the survey in May. So that was impressive. Teachers said that they are continuously improving their instructional practice specifically because of this plan. They have been encouraged to try new instructional strategies specifically because of this plan. And they feel that their instructional practice is better now than it was in the past. And we can't prove this, but we did ask them, do they think that their students were learning better because of the work that they were doing? And they did feel largely that their students did benefit from the teachers learning. I thought that this was an interesting bit of information because we know that when teachers talk to each other about instruction, their instruction gets better. So if you see that in 23-24, about 54% were talking to others about their instruction. This past year, 80% reported regularly having those conversations. And additionally, when teachers see each other teach, particularly expert teachers are observed in their teaching practice, that also improves the practice of those who've gone in to observe, and actually, believe it or not, the teacher who's teaching. So in past, that was about 16% of folks were doing that regularly. This past year, it was about 76% of folks. So those are pretty big jumps.
How is observation facilitated? Is that kind of on are we mandating it, or are we?
It's part of the plan now.
Yes, we are mandating it. And actually, that's one of the things that we clarified in this year's plan. But the way that it gets done in each instance is so particular to the individual situations. But peer observations were one of the things that we discovered wasn't super clear in the plan. So this year we did clarify. Everybody will do at least 3 observations of others' professional practice, and they must be open to hosting, if asked, up to 3 observations. That was actually simply a mathematical issue. We couldn't have people do 3 observations if people weren't willing to accept others. Many people said, in fact, we had a joke on the committee. There's one teacher who gets asked to be observed a lot. We thought that they should just all go to her classroom. That would save the trouble. But many people host many more than 3, which means that others who are less excited to do it maybe don't get asked as often, but everybody will be obligated to offer 3 slots this year. And we also heard that people don't love the forms. It was not a horrendous response rate, but that was the sort of the thing that stood out in the survey is that people did not love the forms. I'm not sure that anybody's ever going to love their evaluation forms. So we weren't hugely worried about that, but we thought if we can make them better, let's give that a try. So we visually streamlined them, making text boxes actually visibly different than the other writing on the page so that people would know where to put their responses. We removed compound questions. So instead of saying, you know, what are you working on improving and how do you know that that needs to be improved? Those are now 2 separate questions. And then we really focused our attention on making sure that the strategies that people are trying are based on evidence and research-based strategies. So it's not just any strategy. There needs to be some evidence that this is a strategy that will work with the students in the situation that they're in. That's it. Those are all the changes. Really, the only actual change is to clarify the number of observations. But other than that, that's it. The state did approve this plan pending your approval here tonight. So they were happy with it and they were happy enough to give us a call and ask us to share it with others in September. So.
And can I clarify, we're being asked to approve the revisions? Because I feel like we already,
Believe the expectation is that you will approve the plan annually.
Oh, okay.
So,
because this is not, right, as you've noted, I mean, right, okay, that makes sense.
so it's here tonight as a receive only. We can certainly wait until August to approve it, and that is more than enough time for it to be in place for us to use in September when teachers reach out.
Presumably, all of this is a way to increase student learning. So, well, improving teaching is got the goal.
Wait.
And there's not a part of a plan that says how we're assessing the pre and post. That is, how much more value-added learning are we getting because of this plan over time? How would we know that?
I don't think we would see it obviously in our standardized test scores, certainly not
Right.
immediately. There's just not going to be.
I don't expect that's where it would be. I mean, that it wouldn't capture in some sense, the beauty of what's really going on in the classrooms. So I'm asking them, whether we're doing it now or not, how do we capture the gains so that we know that this is really becoming causal as opposed to accidental?
Right. Well, so that is actually baked into the plan.
Okay.
Because these are research-based cycles, plan, do, study, act cycles. That action research cycle asks each teacher to evaluate how well the intervention that they tried worked. And in many cases, that's specifically using student outcomes. So it's very small brain size. But for instance, if I want to make sure that I am including all children in conversations and discussions and classroom discussions regularly, I then have to provide some evidence that I've made a change there and of the impact on student learning.
I just hear you asking, how do we aggregate that together and share back to the community that this plan is helping our teachers to be more skillful and therefore helping our students to perform to higher levels. And we need to keep working that through. I think there will be delayed results that we may tease out, but there's usually a 3 to 4 year gap, like lag, before you begin to see.
So there are 2 groups that really, aside from the Board of Education being, is we clearly would want the community to know that the investment of this time, energy, we're doing something right. And secondly, we want the teachers to know. That is their behavior changing in a way that in fact is rewarding for them? For example, if we agreed that, as we have in the past, that things like math and reading instruction, we wanted to really emphasize, would we see over X number of years gains? Probably because our teachers have gotten better in those ways using these techniques. And to the degree that we can capture that formatively would be important.
And that's part of why we're looking at process indicators here. We're looking at the number of times that teachers are in each other's classrooms. We're looking at how often they're speaking about instruction with others. And we're regularly conducting focus groups, surveys. We're gathering this information from teachers about what they're learning. And then principals are sitting with teachers 3 times a year and looking at these study cycles that the teachers are engaging in to see, is this having an impact that is positive for the teacher learning and the kid learning?
The summative measures are going to be really difficult to see when you're already in the top 10%, when you're in the top quartile, when you're in the top decile of the state performance. How much is this going to move those overall measures? So I think we will see something, but it's going to be really small and really incremental, and it's going to take time to see in those measures. I'm not sure how to collect and articulate the kinds of gains that you're talking about.
But I agree that the state standardized tests are just not fine-grained enough, much less, I think, quality enough, but that's a different issue. The thing I'm concerned with is if I'm a high school social studies or English teacher, and I'm concerned about really getting as many as students possible to really engage in critical thinking. And I know over the last few years that 30–40% of my students are not at the level that I would like them to be. And I know that from the kind of writing and testing I do in my classroom.
Right.
Forget the standardized tests. And I said, I would like to use these new things we're doing to see if I can make a difference. Since I'm in charge of the evaluations, the assessments, I have the data. It would be really wonderful if in fact teachers were gathering that kind of data and could say, here are the goals I had at this level of learning, and I think I made a difference, and here's the evidence for it. And they are the best judges of whether or not there's a difference. But we would ask them, what's the evidence? We'd love to see if in fact the kind of assignments we're giving are actually the kind that we would want them to.
Yes, that's it. That is precisely, and that's part of why we talked about the
Wonderful.
evidence. We asked them to bring the evidence that shows that what they're doing is working for the students in their classes.
I guess what I'm hearing is how do we take that from a conversation between the teacher and her principal
And make
and
it public.
aggregate it together and make it public? And so I think that's where I said we have some work to do. We are not, the measures are so different from subject to subject, grade level to grade level, that again, it's going to be difficult to put on a slide to share at a Board of Finance meeting.
Yeah, well, I that makes sense, and I'm not worried about the Board of Finance learning about it. I'm much more concerned that we as a board are as well informed as we can be about the kinds of outcomes. For example, all the data in the last 5 or 6 years says kids are leaving high schools across the country grossly underprepared for college, by which they mean writing ability, critical thinking ability, studying ability to stay on task, a lot of things that our teachers know about. And how are we doing with regard to the kind of things that we really espouse and can report on? And to the degree that we are doing well, I would love to make public, okay? To the degree to which we find that individual people need help, that's an in-service issue. But my guess is we're doing a lot better than we're reporting. And it would be wise for us as a system to sort of see where we are and where we are 5 years from now because of what we're doing on purpose.
Yes, and actually that's really interesting because what you're talking about is a system that we talked about at the Curriculum Institute.
Right.
Which is really focusing on cornerstone assessments that evaluate the portrait of a graduate.
Exactly.
Skills and have a system of that all the way along.
Exactly.
So we spoke about it at Curriculum Institute, but also at our last workshop.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've had
Yeah.
this conversation a few times in the last few weeks.
Well, it's very exciting. When we first saw this educator growth plan, it was something that really looked like it was going to be a different approach and a different tool in a very positive way. Terrific that you're taking the time to revise it and listening to our teachers and what they need. And really commendable that you're being asked to present at the state level. So, and the bonus is we get it right here in real time. So
We'll be back to ask for your approval next month.
yeah, terrific. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
following
please.
up on Dick's comment. What sort of follow-up do we do with graduates, like immediately after graduation? Do we do any or 4 years out or something like that, just to measure how you doing? How did you fare? How did we do?
No, we're not following them. There's been talk at the state level about tracking students. The state has a real interest in trying to see about, we track as far as college placement, right? And we know what the college placements are. State has a real interest in looking to extend that and track through how many students complete 2 years, how many complete 4 years, how many receive a degree, what the student experience is. Ours is, the feedback that we receive is anecdotal and right. Students come back and talk to us, but we don't have a systematized way where we track students post-graduation, where we try to stay in touch with them and collect that
If we
data.
had a full-time data analyst here, we could do that.
But my point, right, backing into it from the state doesn't do that. The state doesn't require it. I don't know of any schools, apart from some private schools, who I know who track it. I don't know of any public systems. But it would be a great thing to get out in front of and be the
No,
first
absolutely.
district to start doing.
Well, we should know.
College is not for everybody, and the
No.
more that we're going through society, I would actually push some of my kids to do other things in more trade schools. My
Yeah.
nephew is doing that right now, and he's amazing. Just by the work he did at my house, that was necessary, but I find that really hard that the state's only tracking kids that go to post-secondary. I hope there's more.
No, and I
Yeah.
apologize.
They track
The
trades.
state's not tracking students at all
They're just
post-graduation.
tracking who.
And I limited my example
Okay.
to college, but we should be
Yeah,
looking
across the
at,
board.
yes, we should be looking across the board. Who goes to a 2-year school, a 4-year school, a vocational
Who goes into
program, a
military.
certificate training program, military,
Yeah.
right? We should be
Straight
looking
to
at, right.
Yeah.
And what is, who's staying in whatever program or placement they go into, who's sticking and completing, and what is their response? Do they feel prepared for and capable of any of the choices
Exactly.
that they made? So no, I limited it to only talking about college, and I apologize for that. The state's not tracking any of it, nor are we.
Right.
We shake their hand on the green and we don't follow them afterwards. The only connection that we have is anecdotal, coincidental, and it's often because we've got younger siblings that we're hearing the stories that are coming back to us.
The privacy matter, right? You have to have them agree to participate,
But we could try to do focus groups. We could even try to do invitational opt-in things to
Yeah.
do something to look at quality of life and satisfaction post Guilford graduation. I started there because I wanted to point out that we're not the only ones who aren't doing it, which doesn't mean we can't be the first to do something.
It's a lot easier now than it used to be.
Sure, yeah.
I was just saying, tie it into the reunions, right? I remember I was so excited to go back at my 5-year. Lost its luster after that.
There's got to be social media opportunities to collect that information without having to invite people back, buy them pizza and have an in-person focus group, right? There's
Yeah.
got to be ways that we could set up a Facebook account and invite graduates of these years to fill out a form, to fill out a survey and give us that kind of information.
All right, 9.4, the next few items, we're gonna be acting on, curriculum that were, both presented at our, last meeting, but also presented, by, some of our faculty that helped create them. So 9.4 is to act on the personal finance curriculum. We all received, the full curriculum in our packet. So I'm gonna ask for a motion to approve the personal finance curriculum.
So moved.
Second,
Any questions or comments or discussion about that?
And the presentation from the teachers was amazing.
Was really terrific.
On the next.
All three.
Yeah, we had it, not because someone knew this was on our agenda, but, in my household a couple days ago, I had a discussion about this and what people in my household wish that they had been, had this in their high school. So this is
But if you look at the
terrific.
curriculum, if you look at it, it is really well done.
Yes.
I-
Oh, it's
I
really
mean,
well done.
The parents in this community should look at that and they would feel very good that their kids are getting that kind of stuff. The fact that the state mandated it turns out to be, I think, a very good thing. But our particular curriculum is very sophisticated.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, it's not rudimentary. This is very sophisticated
Yeah,
stuff.
sure.
Really well done.
You know,
It's terrific.
you can pay $1,000 at age 65 and go to a seminar to try to get the same thing.
Yeah. So, terrific. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the personal finance curriculum,
Aye.
please say aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. 9.5 is to act on the Health 1 and Health 2 curriculums. Is there a motion to approve these curriculums?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions about these? We also received these in detail and also had a presentation on this.
Not to be outdone, but these are also great.
Yes,
I mean, the work that the teachers did on all of these,
Mhm.
it's
it's
just
really spectacular.
not perfunctory,
No,
not perfunctory at all, as they often are all over the country. These are good.
Yeah.
And I might point out that one of our coaches led that curriculum work, so another thing that instructional coaches do.
Right, thank you for pointing that out. That's important. Terrific. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the Health 1 and Health 2 curriculums? Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. 9.6 is to act on the PE, physical education 1 and PE 2 curriculums. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions of these? All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is also unanimous. Terrific. All right, 9.7 is to receive, and the next couple of items are related to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. 9.7 is to receive for possible action awarding the bid for custodial supplies. As has been the process for a number of years, the bid for custodial supplies goes out around the number of items needed, in this case, 63 items that are used by the maintenance staff here at Guilford Public Schools. There were 9 vendors that submitted bids for some or all of the 63 items listed. And we here have a list of those 9. We have been asked to vote to approve the process by which these 63 items will be bid and to the lowest bidder. So some of these vendors bid on 1 or 2 items, some of them bid on many more, and our administration will go through, identify the lowest bidder, and then award the item, 1 of 63, to that bidder. We are simply being asked to approve that process, which then allows our staff to get these items at the lowest bid. So I am asking for a motion to approve the process by which these 9 vendors are assessed for providing custodial supplies to Guilford Public Schools by awarding to the lowest bidder per item.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thanks.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that is everybody. Thank you. 9.7, 9.8 is to receive for possible action a resolution on the capital equipment lease. So every year we take action on a capital lease. We, as a Board of Education, the lease purchase is one that supports our technology every year. Occasionally, it also supports something else. I think in the last couple of years, it supported the purchase of a truck.
well, this year as well, correct.
But it has traditionally been the manner in which we have been able to fund the technology here at Guilford Public Schools, which includes the laptops that our students use, that our teachers use, etc. The first step is a resolution to authorize a lease purchase agreement. We, as a Board of Ed, need to first have the Board of Selectmen authorize the ability to agree to this lease. They have done so at a prior meeting. And so they are now awaiting our vote to again approve the resolution on a capital equipment lease. So I'm gonna ask for a motion for that resolution.
So, second.
Any questions or concerns? All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
I'm just gonna abstain.
abstentions.
I'm gonna abstain.
You're gonna abstain. Okay, Mr. Brooke abstains. All right. The next step is a request to waive the bid requirement for the capital lease. For at least a couple of years, Guilford Public Schools and our administration have found that there are only a couple of vendors who are willing to engage in a lease with us that is this relatively small. They are looking typically for something that might be $1 million or more, and we are frequently looking in the $500,000 range in order to pursue this capital lease. In this case, and this year, there were bids, proposals received from Cogent Leasing and Financing and Huntington National Bank. Typically, we are expecting at least 3 vendors or 3 bids to come in. So we are next being asked to waive the typical bidding process that would require the 3 vendors or banks at least, because that opportunity literally doesn't exist. Mrs. Trudeau, have I missed anything in that explanation? All right, thank you for checking. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the waiving of the bidding process for awarding the capital lease.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments about this? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? No? Okay, so that's unanimous. Lastly, we are being asked to act on, somehow I'm tripping over my tongue this evening, on the actual awarding of the capital lease. So we do, as I mentioned, have 2 vendors that bid on this. The lower is the Cogent Leasing and Financing, which would be an annual 3.94% with annual payments up front in the magnitude of $107,000. Mrs. Trudeau, I'm going to turn to you and see if there's anything in particular you wanted to make sure got mentioned as we consider this.
That's. The only thing that I'll add is that that amount is actually less than the amount that was budgeted for this payment. So it's within, definitely within our budget.
Thank you. That's a really important, important. And did I give I gave the right, so $107,874.08. Okay, with payments in advance.
There was an error in my memo, and I apologize for that. I had the wrong amount.
Okay, no apologies. Thank you so much. All right, so we're being asked then to approve the awarding of the bid. Now that both vendors have been assessed, and their proposals have been assessed to Cogent Leasing and Financing. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Second, any questions, comments, discussion? All right, motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? None. Okay, so that is unanimous as well. Thank you. All right. 9.11 is to act on a recommendation of the policy committee. I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a new policy. The board received this last month and has had the last month to review. This is for a non-lapsing education account. The state has now recommended that we keep a non-lapsing education account. I'm gonna actually read the policy. It's not very long, and since it's a brand new policy, I think it would be good to read that for the public. Non-lapsing education account. The superintendent may request the Board of Education to approve a transfer into a non-lapsing account. The account will be a town-designated fund balance named Fund for Education Expenditures. The transfer may be of some portion of any unexpended funds from the board's prior fiscal year general operating budget, provided such transfer amount does not exceed 2% of the total budget appropriation for the education for such prior fiscal year. Any expenditure from the fund from educational expenditures will be authorized solely by the Board of Education. Expenditures from the fund shall be made only for educational purposes, generally on one-time, non-recurring expenditures, such as capital expenditures, extraordinary expenditures, or emergency expenditures, which may be necessary but not otherwise budgeted. Upon approval from the board, a transfer request will be submitted to the town to allocate the amount to the Guilford Public Schools business office. The business office will report any transfers made from the fund at their next regularly scheduled meeting. Any unexpended funds which may remain at the close of each fiscal year in the Fund for Educational Expenditure account shall be non-lapsing and remain within the account for use by the Board of Education. The board shall create the Fund for Educational Expenditures and be responsible for the accounting of the funds in accordance with the governmental accounting standards and generally accepted principles. The fund shall be subject to an annual audit as required by state statute. The board shall review the fund on an annual basis. So the gist of it is that we can take up to 2% of our total budget that we didn't spend. So at the end of the year, if we happen to be lucky enough to have anything left, historically, we have just returned that to the town. This would allow us to keep up to 2% of that small amount of money. It's never very sizable. In an account, that account can build and it can be used for any expenditures that we haven't budgeted, like a broken pipe, like something that's a little catastrophic. This isn't supposed to be something that will cover a teacher's salary. It's supposed to be a non-budgeted item, really to be thought of as a rainy day fund. It's not something that should be taken back from us, and used for general business purposes. So we didn't really have much of a conversation as a board about this last time, so I'd like to see what everyone's thoughts are on it. We did discuss it at our policy meeting 2 months ago. So now that we have the full board together, does anyone have questions or comments about this policy?
I presume that a legitimate educational expenditure would be adding a teacher for this year.
Based
in the
on
way that
enrollment.
we've done.
Yeah.
Because that money would not be budgeted for an ongoing salary, it would be done for this year. And so that it's a wonderful example of why a fund like that would serve good purpose for us.
Sounds like there might be some.
So,
Differences.
yeah, I think
And a
there's,
comment that I think it's this is for non-recurring.
Yeah, non-recurring, you can
But the
hire a
teacher's
teacher for
recurring,
1 year.
so we would have to absorb it into the budget.
And then we have a
Right.
budget for
Right.
next year
Right.
because we know in advance.
Right.
It gives you a leeway. So that if we had to hire 2 or 3 teachers this year and we had a reserve in there, we could be done without taking it from somebody else's budget. So people aren't getting hurt by it because it's an emergency.
I think the beauty of it is that that decision needs to be made by the board. I could see situations where I might come to you and argue in front of this board that we had budgeted for 11 kindergarten teachers. We're now at 12. We need it for this year.
Right.
And then next year, with first grade numbers being different than kindergarten numbers, it doesn't have to be a continuing or recurring expense. If you saw where you could turn the 12 back into 11, or even go so far as to say by building it into the budget next year, it wouldn't continue to. So I could see that in each sitting board would be able to make that decision
Right.
and decide whether it fits into the description or not. I would argue that the $65,000 that we may lose in grant funding, it'd be something that this fund could
Yeah.
easily fill in. while we await a determination on whether those grants are gone forever. And the training is annual training, so that clearly is non-recurring. But I think the beauty of it is that we would make recommendations, and it would be for the sitting board at that moment to determine whether they were going to release it for that purpose or not.
I think the example that I've used in a number of conversations I've had with colleagues at our other boards in town is that we frequently have our tuition line, which our administration has really successfully over the years been able to predict a little better with a lot of data points that they look at very closely, but continues to be a line that cannot be fully predicted in a manner simply because we don't know what our children's needs are going to be in any given year, or whether new students might come into the district who have needs that we need to support. We have had many years in my tenure on the board where our tuition line was over by quite a bit. And while in my tenure, we have never had to go to the Board of Finance mid-year or before the end of the year to ask for more money in order to make sure we meet our final budget numbers. We have had years where we've had to freeze funds for a while in a prediction of knowing that our tuition line was going to go up. So that's another example
Good
that we
example.
use quite a bit.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
it's non-recurring, but in a year where we have more student need than we have budgeted for, it could provide support for that.
I would also assume that the volatility around healthcare, when we see medical expenses spiking as much as they are right now, this would be another area where we'd be able to turn to that funding.
So I'm gonna suggest that I don't think we can use it for
Education.
health care.
Education.
Yeah, that's
And it
been
has to
be
educated.
educational.
It has to be educational.
Be educational
Yeah.
or for a capital expenditure, so I
That's
don't
a good
think
point.
that
Okay.
Yeah,
would apply.
yeah.
I think it's really timely, given what we were talking about just earlier, what's happening around education on the federal level, that we have something to kind of supplant. If some of the grants aren't continued and other things, that we can have some opportunities. Because grants are typically one time, so, also could supplement some of it.
So,
What is 2% of our budget?
Our annual budget.
Approximately 1.4 million where we sit now, 1.5 million where we sit now.
yeah, and I will note that, we've had years, Mrs. Trudeau can be exact, I don't think it's necessary for this comment, but we've had years in the past, several where we've ended the year with less than 100,000
Yep.
extra dollars.
We had years where we were $8,000.
Right.
And we've had years where we have had a couple of $100,000, but this is, this is something that is not going to grow very, very large.
I don't ever.
Right away.
I don't ever anticipate seeing 2%. In my tenure in Guilford, the biggest return ever was in the year that we closed schools in March. We
Right.
physically had to close schools in March, and in that school year, we returned approximately $325,000. And that was the biggest return in my time in Guilford. 6 figures is an unusual number to hit. We budget, and again, right, the process we went through this year, from the budget that the principals brought to us, that we brought forward to you, that you brought to the Board of Finance, and that the Board of the Finance then moved on to the voters, was reduced by over $2 million. So while there is a 2% ceiling, I don't anticipate us ever getting close to that ceiling.
Well, and as part of this policy that's being put in front of us to consider, part of our jobs every year is
Just to
gonna be
determine how
monitor-
much to hold on.
It's gonna be to determine that and to monitor this carefully. So,
Annually, this board could choose to return it all to the town.
Mhm.
Yes,
yeah, that's
right,
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I just have a comment. I actually voted no on this out of policy. I still believe the things I believe why I voted no. And I just wanna, if I could just express those, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, or I believe 100% with this, but there are certain members of our community, and it's a large amount of the community, that does believe there is some lack of transparency in the Board of Ed budget. That we always seem to find the money and we always seem to have money to give back, and that they believe that the Board of Ed budget is padded pretty well to be able to do those things. Now, I understand we don't give back a lot of money. I agree with you there, and I'm not saying that I believe in these things. But at the same time, to me, doing a fund like this just feeds into that, in terms of the community. I know that, again, we've returned very little. I don't like the idea of this sort of a fund, because if we have a need, if we had to go to the town, I know we're very proud that we haven't gone to the town Board of Finance, but if we had to, we could, and they would.
Correct.
So we already have that stopgap measure. So I think something like this is just inviting more opportunity for people and for the community to be upset with a budget that's already the majority of our budget, where they're claiming it's too big, which it did fail last year in those ideas. I think just adds to that and adds fuel to that fire. So I just don't like it.
So
And that was mine.
I'm not gonna, I want to continue discussion, but we're now getting into kind of personal thoughts. So I am gonna ask for a motion and a second, and then continue discussion on the actual. I'm gonna put it in the positive, or simply ask for someone, if there is a motion to act on the recommendation of the policy committee for enacting this policy 3316 non-lapsing account. Is there someone who would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I now want to invite, other conversation if people have a continued conversation about this.
I don't wholeheartedly disagree with what you're saying, but at least voting on this, approving this, gives us the mechanism to be able to make that decision. Not allowing it does not give us that opportunity.
One of the things I would have liked to have seen in this, and we did discuss this in policy, is a cap.
Yeah.
I think it should have been capped at 500,000 at a top end, right? We're gonna have those years, like you said, where there's gonna be some more money. I believe it was Branford who just put $2 or $3 million this school year into this sort of an account. That's outrageous in my book. Like, I don't want to ever see that happen here. So I just think there needs to be more safety rails or safeguards on this sort of a thing, with a little bit more, again, transparency. I know that's used a lot.
No, you're right.
But I that's what makes me uncomfortable about this is, right, we have you, Dr. Freeman, who we know what your intention is, right? Eventually, at some point, you have to leave. I'm not saying now.
Can we do the next item first, please?
I hope not. At least I hope you're not leaving. But that you could see that getting abused, and you could see this going, and I know it's all up to the board, but when we're talking about the optics, and we're talking about a community, and we're talking about, this is the town's money that they've given to us to do these things with. I just don't know that it's the best move on our.
Can I counterpoint that? And the intention, I think, behind this on a state level was we have a very wonderful relationship with our town leadership and our other boards. And there are a lot of communities where that is not the case, and where funds that could really be used for something impactful in education get usurped for something else. And so I think this protects a lot of communities around that, giving them, like as John said, a mechanism. And I think it's like anything, it's like setting up a savings account. You might not use it, but we might be in a position in the future where we think it's really prudent to do it. And I adore you and you're my colleague, but I would argue against the lack of transparency. Our entire budget is published for the community to vet and look through every line, and to come to community meetings and ask questions. So I don't get that perception but again, you may be talking to other folks and that's legitimate. But I think if we're going to continue to be as transparent as possible, Kristen just read the whole thing to the community, and hopefully if folks have questions in the future, great. We may never use it. Or as I joke with John, we may put $160 in that account one year, like we don't know. But I want to validate what you said, but I also just want to say that having served in this board for almost 8 years, I don't think we're not transparent about our budgets. I think Linda has the foresight every year to kind of, I don't know what your crystal ball is, but you've been amazing around this, and Dr. Freeman, to really predict well. And when we've had to cover other things, to be able to shift, say tuition were low, we're able to shift it to capital improvements that ran over, like, that's responsible budgeting. And I just wanted to say that. And I understand your misgivings on this. But I think the state's intention, and I know it was to really empower some education systems to not have that rug pulled out from under them, and to give them a little flexibility with their funds that they had on their budget line for educational purposes. So that's all.
For clarity, does this take, it necessitates a board vote to place monies into the account?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it necessitates a board vote to
use
manage
it.
expenditures.
Exactly.
Correct.
So there is an opportunity for a lot of
A
transparency
lot of discussion.
at that point
And
as well.
on top of that, the board and the administration know this budget because of 9 months of working every year, line by line. Nobody else in town does. The Board of Finance, by law, cannot reduce this budget, recommend reduction by line item, only by a general amount. Properly, because in fact, they have no context for understanding what these lines mean. Seems to me that one wants to always keep the people who have the authority over the schools, which is the board and the administration, as close to the budget as possible. And it's important for us to know, we do this every year, we have to face decisions, and we know we're up against not having enough money. To know that we've got another account because it's been sitting here for 2 or 3 years beginning to build is an important part of our ability to build a budget for the following year. Without having to go and ask permission from somebody else who knows much less about this budget. So I think that the state is right and awfully late about coming around, putting responsibility for the budget where it really belongs.
Except that when we do the budget next year and we've got $500,000 sitting there, the first thing the community is gonna say is, no, we're voting this down. You've got 500,000 right there. You
No,
fix your
but-
budget with that. I mean, it's just, you gotta know that's gonna be a reality. We're gonna be
That's
up
fine.
against every year.
They can
when we
ask
have
that, they can ask that without this. They can ask it anytime they want. The fact of the matter is, we should be able to say, this is what it's being used for. This is the emergency. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we didn't fund last year. We have answers for all those things. And I think they should hold us responsible for that. So I don't think they should be sitting there having to say, they don't know what the Board of Finance is talking about when they come to our budget. They have no idea what's in the heads of anybody else. We are the people legally responsible for the budget. And if we have the good fortune of having a surplus 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, great. It means that we can think about the upcoming budget differently than if we didn't have that. Because if it's someplace else, it's just not real to us at that point. And so I'm happy to take responsibility for this as a board member, as opposed to letting some other boards in town give us permission.
Well, and I also think emergencies happen, like the broken pipe at Adams, whenever that was 6
Yeah.
months ago, or. And that it would have been handy to have some money sitting around somewhere.
Mhm.
Cause I think the town has to understand that every unplanned contingency, money has to come from somewhere. And this would provide the opportunity for that.
And we know that we've been very cautious and careful with the budget and have a very limited unexpended fund at the end of each year. And given this policy, we have the choice to transfer only a certain amount of that money into this emergency fund.
Right.
So we wouldn't necessarily have to go to the $500,000 mark. We
And
may
suppose
say,
you get a hostile Board of Finance in the future,
yes. We don't know.
politically.
Right.
I mean,
Right, we don't know, but we can choose how much we would put in this fund, so we also can be responsible along the way about how much we feel comfortable with in the emergency fund.
And I suppose the budget that we have is approved by the town. So if we have a budget of $74 million, the town has voted in favor of that being earmarked specifically for education. So if we wind up spending 73.8 million of that, it would make sense that the other 200,000 should stay with education, since that's what the town would have asked for it to be earmarked for. Okay, because I like Jen had some hesitations about this and this conversation's been helpful.
I also, and we've heard it from a couple of other comments, we have control over how we
Correct.
proceed with
Right,
this,
yes.
right?
This
And-
gives us the opportunity.
And we can look at this again next year or in 2 years and say, how is this going? Do we like how this is going? Do we want to add something to this policy that puts further parameters around this? I think that's the thing that I like too, is it really does give us the opportunity. It requires, as it should, that we are monitoring this every year. It requires, Mr. Scretta, as you said, that we vote on things that go in and come out, right? There's nothing automatic about any of this. And then lastly, it gives us the opportunity, again, in a year or two to say, how's this going? Is there something we want to change about this? So. Any other comments before I call a vote? All right, so I have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor of creating per this policy 3316, a non-lapsing education account.
Aye.
Aye for those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1 opposed. And I don't think there are any abstentions, but I'm gonna check. No, all right, wonderful, thank you, great discussion.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge again, this is why I like working with this board so much. I mean, this is the work of a Board of Education. I appreciate every opinion that was just shared here. This from early on and some of the items that I had to report out to you to the way that we make decisions. This is why I appreciate working with this board.
Thank you.
Timed on purpose.
So
Well.
our next item. Our next item, we have here received for, we have received for possible action, but I believe we are indeed, ready to act on. Both the extension of the superintendent's contract and, the compensation for the 2025-26 year. So, the Board of Education, has met in executive session as appropriate, with Dr. Freeman, to discuss, performance over the last year. We then met, without Dr. Freeman in executive session to continue those conversations. And then, engaged in a negotiation, to land on, our decisions, mutual decisions around compensation, or mutual negotiations around compensation for the 25-26 school year. The contract that we will be voting on tonight identifies the compensation for the 25-26 school year as such. That there will be a 3.25% increase to the superintendent's salary, which will also be applied to the TSA. And there will be a $3,500 contribution added to the TRB. Getting to the right page. The TRB system benefit. Those are the two things related to compensation that represent increases to the superintendent's contract this year. The only other change to the contract is to remove language that is no longer necessary under fringe benefits 7D, which had an allowance for unused vacation days, provided the superintendent remained employed in the district through June 30th, 2023, and that has already happened. So what I want to first do is ask for a motion to approve the compensation in the contract for the 2025-26 year as noted, 3.25% increase in salary, and the $3,500 towards the TRB.
So moved.
You can have that one. I'll second.
Second. All right. I just want to take the opportunity before a final vote, to note that, that we continue to be very pleased with, Dr. Freeman, with your performance. We are excited when we see things like the teacher evaluation plan that comes out of this district. When we see the professional development that you're providing, when we see the quality of the hires that come in at various building level and administrative positions in this district. These have all had really great impacts on our school and on our students. We do have in the contract a number of areas that we consider when we're considering the evaluation. One of those areas is the superintendent's relationship with the board, which I feel has continues to be extraordinarily positive. Dr. Freeman is very available, not only to me as chair, but to any member of the board. And that I think has been a really positive impact. Other areas include relationship with the community. And something I've mentioned a number of years in a row and will mention again because of how important it is, relationship with other leadership in town. Part of the success of a school system that always operates within the context of the town is the relationships that the administration has with other leadership. We find great support from our town. We find great support from our police department. We have great support from Guilford Youth and Family Services. There are a number of really important organizations in town in which at various levels we are mutually dependent on each other and really at times as a school system require their assistance. And the quality of relationships that Dr. Freeman makes with the partners in various organizations really benefits us tremendously. So that's what I wanted to say, but I do want to give an opportunity for my colleagues to mention as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would argue that the sign of great leadership in a business or a board of education is people's willingness or want to come work for you. You know, this is, you know, in an area where most districts struggle with employment. We don't. We have people that are doing everything they can from multiple states outside of Connecticut to come work here. And I would also argue that the sign of a great leader is when people do leave, they're on to great things and bigger things. And so that's what we're seeing with a lot of our staff that are sadly leaving us, but going on to major roles in other districts that we just don't have here at this moment because we're fully staffed. So I think one of the best things that we see in your leadership is people's want to work here, which is fantastic. So thank you. Thank you.
I'll just add, the students. I think it's a big reflection on Dr. Freeman and your administration of this district that, to my colleagues' point, not every child is going to go on to college, but those that do, seek out great opportunities, and those that don't still seek out great opportunities and have a great foundation. And that starts at the top with you, and it trickles down to our administrators and our building administrators and our teachers, and to the most important and valuable asset we have in this community, our kids. So I was trying to remind myself that all that we do here and all the hours we put in is so that little kid in second grade is assured that they will read and have an incredible experience and grow as a human being. And so, and to Ralph's point, we don't track them after they leave here, but I would hope to think that they can look back on their education here with positive resources, and a lot of that has to do with just the decisions that you make every day. And obviously we are in support of your work, and as you say, you love working with us. I think we love working with, I know we love working with you. So thank you for having that relationship with us, because I think it's very unique. There are a lot of boards that don't have that, so it's really important that we have that and that continue, so.
When Dr. Freeman first got here, he was one of the youngest superintendents in the state. And
Not anymore.
Time's a ticking.
only to say that relatively inexperienced, and most superintendencies in the state and in the country don't last very long. They go 3, 4, 5, 6 years. In this case, we have a superintendent. Is this your 13th year?
I think I'm starting my 15th year.
15th year. 15 year. Now, some could argue that's too long, and that we're suffering, you know, how do we get rid of somebody for so long? In our case, it needs to be said that we're just as lucky to have them in the 15th year as we were in the first year. And that's an unusual thing to be able to say, because we get all the wisdom and experience of somebody who knows this place in and out without any of the loss that comes with being in a place too long. This board wouldn't tolerate that.
Yeah.
So people know, and we talk about, you know, what Paul does for us as a superintendent. So I just don't want to take it for granted that we're sort of making an easy decision. Well, he's here, we're going to just keep him here. He's here because the fact the board has affirmatively decided we should keep him here for another year. For all the right reasons.
Thank you.
Say my daughter survived all of her schooling in this district, which to me is so odd. But she wants to go on to be a teacher, which is amazing. And she has said she's coming back to Guilford at the end of when the first opportunity, which says a lot. You know of our whole struggles over all these years. For her to say that is pretty amazing. So
That's fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the superintendent's contract and compensation for the 25-26 school year, please say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstentions. All right. That is unanimous. The second piece of this is then the opportunity to extend the superintendent's contract by 1 year. This is an annual event, and this is a very commonplace across Connecticut, right? So we have generally we start with a 3-year superintendent's contract. When we finish the first year, we are looking at compensation for the next year, as we just did, and then we have the opportunity to extend the contract back to a 3-year contract. So is there a motion to extend the superintendent's contract for an additional year? So moved.
Second.
Any comments or discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous as well. Congratulations. Thank you for your all you do in the name of being superintendent of this district.
Thank you very much. I look forward to another 3 years together.
Absolutely. All right, 10, report of committees, policy committee, anything else? Operations committee, anything to add, John?
No, nothing.
Okay.
We covered a lot.
Covered a lot.
In operations.
Curriculum instruction assessment.
We meet in October, and then we're going to probably take up artificial intelligence.
Okay, terrific, that'd be great. Liaisons from town committees, anything from town committees? Education related, none, and we talked earlier about liaison board of directors. We're going to identify that approach. Number 11, public comments. Again, we do not have anyone from the public here. So we can go to number 12. Closing comments. I'm sorry.
The only closing comment I have is to welcome Mr. Hamel to the table here with us. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and it's the first words I've said the whole meeting. So I appreciate that.
Also the last word.
Absolutely.
I had a question,
Absolutely.
and I'm sorry, this should have happened back at 9.
Okay.
But in light of 9.2, where we're talking about reviewing readiness of new students for kindergarten, in light of the fact that those 3 students were also in this circled area for the LEAP kindergarten, how's that work? Is it independent? Is there ever a situation where you might say, no, you're ready, but we don't have the space? We're not gonna bring on a new for once, what's the balance?
Yeah, I don't anticipate that we would ever make a decision in that way. So the new kindergarten enrollment says that there is an automatic age in which students, if they're 5 years old before September 1st, they're automatically qualified to be enrolled. And then that students who won't be 5 until December, right? Until that secondary date may enroll if the school district determines that they are ready. It doesn't include any language about space availability. I don't anticipate there would ever be a situation in Guilford where we would assess that a student was ready and still required that parent to hold them till rather than adding a section in our school to follow that statute in the spirit in which the statute is written. There's no language about available funding or seats available, which is very different than the way we talk about the open choice program. The open choice program, where we extend seats to students who reside in New Haven, is very specifically based on space being available. But for a resident of Guilford, you're either 5 by September 1st, or you are deemed ready, and then 5 by that date certain in December. And I don't see that we would do anything different ever.
Along those lines, do we have numbers for open choice for next year? Not yet, right?
We do. We had, I believe it was 8 students who had initially accepted. I have been hesitant to share those too much because last year we had 6, and over the summer through attrition, we reduced down to 1. Though that 1 is returning, and we were expecting, I believe it was 8 or 9 more who had enrolled. But I wanted to wait until the August meeting to share those and see if there was going to be attrition again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, excellent. All right, I am going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Did you just that? All in favor?
And no executive session.
It's getting late. It is getting late.